Hi BookTube, my name is Sarah and welcome to the Bookish Knitter. Today I am coming to you with my weekly reads video. This is for week number 41 and it's October the 10th through the 16th. So happy October. I know we've been in October for a few weeks. However, fall has finally arrived here in Southern Ontario. The temperatures are cooler, the leaves are starting to change and falling off the trees. There's a wind blowing today. It is chilly out today. Like I've got my hoodie on today. So that is fantastic. It makes me super happy. I love this weather. You guys know that. It's been a bit of it's been an odd week. I don't know how to describe it. So Monday was Thanksgiving for us here in Canada, and my husband, my mom, and I just had a nice dinner here at home, and you know, very, very low key, no frills kind of an idea, just the three of us. We had ham and scalloped potatoes, and it was delicious. And then I was back to work, of course, on Tuesday and Wednesday. I was in the office, and it was quiet. But I got a lot of the coursework done for the course that I'm doing for work, which was great. And then Thursday and Friday, for some reason, was just super busy. But Friday was kind of nice. I actually got to leave an hour early, and the hubs and I went over to the mall, and we went and did a little... I went to Lush, which is one of my favorite stores. It's bath stuff, like bath bombs and stuff like that. I know they're in the US as well, but I really love like their shower gels and stuff. So we went over there because they had all their Christmas stuff out already, and some of their Halloween stuff still as well, of course. So we went there, and then we had mall food for dinner on Friday, so it was really nice. Garrett starts his job this week. On Thursday is his first day at Amazon. So fingers crossed all that goes well. I'll update you guys next week, of course. So of course, as you can clearly tell, no vlog. This is just so much easier for me right now. With the hours that I work and things like that. If that changes and what have you, then maybe that'll change. I don't know. You guys know, I mentioned this last week, I kind of go back and forth between the vlogs and these weekly reads videos. At the end of the day, you're getting the same thing. I am reviewing these books for you, whether it's vlog style, where I'm just kind of sitting down as I finish a book to share it with you, or whether I'm filming one big video here on a Sunday. So yeah, anyway, links below, timestamps below, excuse me, to all of the books that I'm going to talk about. I did have a 5-book reading week this week, and that was great. And then I'm going to share with you what I'm currently reading and a very small little book haul that I'm very thankful for, because 2 authors sent me ARC copies of their books, and yay. So of course I'm going to share those with you guys. So let's jump in and get started. But first of all, cheers. Coffee this morning from Country Style. I broke out of my McDonald's. I love Country Styles. I don't mind their coffee. It's not bad. They're a chain here in Canada. They used to be a lot bigger. There used to be a lot more stores. But now they're a bit harder to find. But they have the best breakfast sandwiches, in my opinion, because their bagels are delicious. So that's where we went for breakfast this morning. So of course I got a coffee. And, you know, I'm still sipping on it this morning. So yeah. Into the books I finished this week. So the first book that I finished this week was Kristy and the Haunted Mansion by Ann M. Martin. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It's book number 9 in the Babysitter's Club mystery series. The publication date on this one was June of 1993, and this is a middle grade mystery. So this one was fun. This one was very appropriate for this time of year, for like the fall autumn season. So the premise of this one is that Kristy and Bart, who is like her on again off again boyfriend, like her sort of boyfriend, they call him in the books, and they each have this like little softball team for the little kids, the kids who are too little or too scared to play in Little League, essentially. So it's kind of just like a neighborhood softball team, and they're playing against another neighborhood softball team a few towns over. So they play the game at the beginning of the book, and then they all get in the van. Kristy's older brother is driving them back and forth, and they're driving back to Stony Brook, and there's a big rainstorm, and it washes out this bridge, and they have to spend the night in this very creepy house, like a haunted mansion. And it's not dilapidated or anything like that. It's very well kept, but there's clearly a mystery about what happened to the people who lived here. There is a caretaker on premises. He lives in a cottage, and he's like, oh, you can stay here. It's fine. But it's like there's no power because of the storm, so here's some blankets, and they had a little bit of food and stuff like that. So it's pretty much Kristy and Bart and these kids trying to find out the mystery. And then, of course, this is way in the age before cell phones, that everybody in Stony Brook is kind of like, what's going on? Where are they? They're not back yet. A little worried about the location of these kids. So that part of it, that in Stony Brook, that's a mystery as well in a way. But we know where Kristy is, kind of an idea. So it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it was 3.5 stars. Great for this time of year. Really spooky, very atmospheric. I liked it. It was fun. The next one that I finished, guys, this was so good. I read Missing at Christmas by Katie Richards. I was working on this one for far too long. I started it and then put it down to read other things. But oh my gosh, once I got back into this, so I was about a quarter of the way through it. And then, like I said, at work it was a little bit quiet on Tuesday and stuff. So kind of got a bit of reading done. And I finished it like in a day. And oh my gosh. So I gave this one 5 stars, you guys. You know how rare it is for me to throw around 5-star reviews. So this is book number 2 in the West Investigation series. It is Harlequin Intrigue number 2023. Publication date September of 2021. So this came out last month. This is, of course, a romantic suspense. So this is the story of Addie and Sean. So Sean is the brother of the male lead, Ryan, in the first book. So I love the first book as well in this one. So anyway, in this one, Addie is in this very small town in upstate New York looking for her sister because her sister went missing and no one knows where she's gone. And Sean is in the same little small town investigating for his brothers, or like the investigation firm, West Investigations, that he co-owns with his brothers. And he's there to investigate this like computer company that has a large facility in this town. And it just so happens that her sister worked for this computer company. She was an intern, right? So she's going to school and she decided to take a year off and she got this job. So anyway, Addie is a very well-known up-for-partner lawyer in New York City. And she's kind of in a way, this has become her sole focus. And her boss is like, you've got to come back or you're going to be out of a job. And she's like, I don't care. So her and Sean run into each other and they do have a history because they met at his brother Ryan's wedding. And of course, as I said, Ryan was book number 1's male lead. So they met at Ryan's wedding, had a one-night fling, and she pretty much ghosted him. She's like, I don't have time for a relationship, even though they both lived in New York City. And, you know, whatever. So anyway, then they happen, of course, to run into each other. So the reason that this book got 5 stars is not only is it edge of your seat, like right from the beginning, but the scene at the end of this book took this from a 4.5 to a 5 for me. And I don't want to give away what happens, but I'll put it this way. The princess doesn't need the prince to save her. Let's just say that. If you want to use like a Disney analogy, the princess doesn't need the prince to save her from the bad guy, right? So it was fantastic. I really, really like this one. Highly recommend Katie Richards. You don't have to have read the first one. This one can be completely read on its own, but I recommend the entire series. So spoiler alert for what I'm currently reading. The 3rd book I am working on as well right now, but I'll talk about that one next week. But yeah, this one was absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend it. And yeah, pick it up. Now, the one thing I have to say, and I, this is just not for anything. Christmas is not very much mentioned in this book. It's called Missing at Christmas. It does take place during the Christmas season, like the lead up to Christmas. But really, it's more like an atmosphere thing. Like they walk into a diner and there's Christmas carols being played. And, it talks about how in the town, how, the lights are around the trees and stuff like that. Like that's really the only major mention of Christmas in this book. So if you're somebody who's jumping into this because of the part of Christmas, that's not why you should read this. Read it for the story because the story is fantastic. So the next one that I finished was one that I wasn't absolutely in love with, and that was 15 Minutes of Flame by Kristin Brecher. This book I gave 3 stars to. This was a NetGalley read, so thank you very much to Kensington and to NetGalley for sending me an e-art copy of this one to read and review. This is book number 3 in the Nantucket Candle Maker Mystery Series. Publication date August of 2020, so this came out last year, a little behind. It is, of course, a cozy mystery, and I did listen to this on audio, and it was narrated by Callie Beaudreau, I believe is how you say her name. So, essentially with this one, it was just, the whole thing was just kind of meh for me. Our main character, Stella, I mean, she was fine. The whole premise of this cozy mystery is that Stella owns a candle making shop on the island of Nantucket. There's very little mention of candle making. There is very little mention of her being her shop. And I know that's usually a driving force with a lot of these cozies. They're like small business owners. So that part of it, that craft, if you will, whether it be candle making or knitting or quilting or owning a tea shop, tends to really come into the story. This was really lacking in any sort of candle making capacity, which I wasn't here for a lesson on candle making. That wasn't the reason I was reading this. But, you know, I wanted to see a bit more of her, I guess, in her element, if you will. The mystery itself kind of really drew me in at the beginning, because what happened is that there's this like small property owned by, so there's this property owned by her friend, and then there's a small like gatekeeper's cottage, and she's in the gatekeeper's cottage and she's looking for things because she works with the local like scout troop, like these like Girl Guides or Scouts or whatever you want to. Is Girl Guides only a Canadian thing, or is that an American thing too? American friends, let me know. I was in Girl Guides, by the way. I made it all the way to Pathfinders. And then I'm like, I'm done. Anyway, sorry, side note. So she runs this like Girl Scout group. And they're doing like Halloween, some big Halloween festival thing. And she's looking for decorations in this gatekeeper's cottage. Her friend gave her permission to do so. So she ends up finding this big, like, old sign that whoever used to own this property actually also ran a candle making business back in, I don't want to say pioneer days, but it was over 100 years ago. Like, it was a while ago. And she saw the sign and she calls her friend and she sends him a picture. She's like, hey, can I have this? And he's like, yeah, sure. Like, you know, clearly, you know, put it in your shop. It's an antique kind of an idea. So when she removes this thing from the mantle, there's this cutout behind the mantle of this fireplace in this cottage, and there's a skeleton inside. And it's this woman who died 100 years ago. So then there's this whole mystery surrounding around what happened to this woman. And I was totally into it. And I'm like thinking in my head, this is what I was talking about last week, where you have a mystery that, yes, there's a murder, but it's like 100-year-old murder, right? And I'm like, oh, you know, like, to me, it would be a lot harder to investigate something like that, right? And then there's this whole bit with these diaries that they find for this woman, and there's another woman who may have like committed suicide by throwing herself down a well on this guy's property on the island. And I was right into it. They're going like off to the well to investigate if there's anything in this well, if there is a skeleton in the well, because it's been kind of boarded up. And then like an actual like person, like today, a modern is killed. And then it kind of goes off in this entire other direction. And I'm like, but I want the historical mystery. And I legit did not care as much about the recent murder. Let's put it that way. So, you know, they're kind of, it really, there was a lot going on in here. There was like these 3 murders and what happened to them. And then when the whole reveal happens about how they found out what happened to these 2 women 100 years ago, it was kind of like, all right, fine, okay. And then same with the guy who died, the recent murder, you know. I got to this point where I just stopped caring. There was way, way too many characters in this book. Now, I get that it's 3rd in a series, but come on. I mean, there was a ton of characters. Like, they introduced at least 5 characters that were, like, central to this story, like, new for this story kind of an idea. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. If you're a cozy mystery reader, give it a try. Maybe you'll love it. But it just didn't work for me 100%. I would have loved it if they left out the recent murder and just gone with the old school murder. That would have been, but I guess they kind of needed that. Because when, I don't know, but maybe again, the guy didn't have to murder the guy. Maybe it could have been like he tried to hurt him to stop him from doing something relating to the 100-year-old murder. It's a whole thing. I'm not being very good at explaining it, but mainly because that's how convoluted the story kind of got in places. So didn't love this one, but it was all right. I don't know if there's any more in this series. There are the 2 previous books, but I don't know if there's going to be more after this one. I have no idea. So the next one that I finished, this one was one that I hadn't planned on reading. I read this one for the Pass the Parcel Challenge because you had to read, for last week's prompt was to read a book on a list, which was about an accidental pregnancy. Not a secret baby, but an accidental pregnancy. They are 2 different things in romance tropes. And the book I read, oh my gosh, you guys, this was delightful, was Awk-Weird by Avery Flynn. I gave this book 4 stars. It is book 2 in the Ice Knight series, so it's a hockey romance. Publication date October of 2019. It was a contemporary romance, and oh my gosh, you guys, this was delightful. So I actually own this one on Kindle. I had bought it quite some time ago when it was on sale one day, and I had heard a lot about Avery Flynn, and I'm like, all right, I'll give this one a try. So this is the story of Tess and Cole, and this was charming. Absolutely charming. Don't get me wrong. This gets hot and spicy. Believe me, this gets hot and spicy. However, there was this underlying sweetness to it, and I loved it. So Tess is very introverted. She is very shy. She doesn't really interact well with people, which is fine. She's awkward. Clearly the name of the book is Awk-Weird. And she's at the wedding of her best friend, and she's at the very beginning of the book, and I right at the beginning of the book, I fell in love with Tess. She's like, how long do I have to stay at this wedding before I can leave so I don't seem rude? And I'm like, girl, I feel you. I am of your people. I understand. So she's kind of hanging around the tables by herself. Everybody else is up dancing. And there's these group of hockey players who are at the other table because the groom is one of the hockey players on this team. And I think his book is book number 1. But again, you don't have to have read the first book to read this one. I read them, like I did not read the first one, and I had no problem following along with this one. So these hockey guys, they're kind of bored too, and they're playing this trivia game on their cell phone. So Tess is the queen of trivia. She just will randomly blurt out random trivia for no reason. So as they're playing, she's kind of mumbling the answers under her breath, and Cole overhears her. So the 2 of them, start talking, and they decide to team up to play against the other guys, and they place this bet against the other ones. So, it's kind of this big fun thing that they're doing at the wedding. So then he asks her to dance afterward, and then they end up going up to his room, and she ends up getting pregnant. And then the story goes from there, that she kind of approaches him, and she's like, guess what? And then it turns out the apartment she's living in floods, and she needs a place to stay, so she stays with Cole. And the whole story goes on from there. It was so delightfully charming. I loved it. Cole really had his own issues as well because he does not like change at all. Like, he eats the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. When he's playing hockey, he's on his schedule for hockey, like for when he goes to the arena to practice, to this, to that, to this, to like the point where there's this one scene where him and 2 of the other hockey guys are sitting out by his pool. And they're telling him, you don't like change. He's like, oh, I'm fine with change. Change is fine. So then the friend stands up and takes his deck chair and turns it around. And he's like, I dare you to leave it like this for a week. And he's like, well, that's just stupid. The chair should face the pool. And you could just, as you're reading it, you could just feel that he was just itching to go and move it back. So very OCD in that aspect. And Tess was just a delight. Yeah, I love this. I really, really love this. If you get a chance, pick this one up. It was so much fun if you love contemporaries. But again, as mentioned, this one does get very hot and spicy. So, be that as it may, whatever your comfort level is, it wasn't, for me, it didn't cross any boundaries. It was a pretty typical spicy contemporary romance. I'll say that. And the last book that I finished this week was another cozy mystery, and that was The Cider Shop Rules by Julianne Lindsey. I gave this book 4.5 stars. Oh my gosh, this was so good. Thank you very much again to Kensington and NetGalley for sending me an e-art copy of this one to read and review. This is book 3 in the Cider Shop Mystery Series. Publication date July 2021. Of course, it's a cozy mystery. I listened to this one on audio, and it was narrated by Amy Melissa Bentley. This series is so much fun. So I have read the first book in the series, Apple Cider Slaying, I think it's called, which was a Christmas story. Then there's the second book called Pulp Friction, I think is what it's called. And then this is the third book. I went ahead and read this one out of order for 2 reasons. 1, I had it from NetGalley, and 2, because it was fall themed. Now, I thought originally it might be Halloween themed, but this takes place, the book starts the day after Halloween, and it goes to the lead up to Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. So if you're looking for something autumnal, this is definitely the way to go. So our main character in this story is Winnie, and she runs a cider shop on her grandmother's apple orchard, like in a barn on the apple orchard. And it's just her and her gran. Her mom kind of took off when she was quite young. She doesn't know who her dad is. Her grandfather died a number of years earlier, and she talks a lot about him in the book. They were very close. He taught her a lot about a lot of different things. So her and her good friend go over to this neighboring farm, which is a pumpkin patch. And after Halloween, they kind of do this fall festival where they have like hay rides and like a corn maze and, you know, pumpkins and stuff. Like, it's not just Halloween. Like, I kind of love the fact that this pumpkin patch continues the celebration past Halloween because, you know, there's still fall. You know what I mean? So anyway, she is picking up some pumpkins and hay bales and stuff like that for her grandmother. She's talking to the owner, and then she comes back and her truck is filled with the stuff that she ordered, and he's nowhere to be found. So she's like, okay, fine. Her and her friend go off, and they stop somewhere for ice cream, and they come back to the truck, and there's all these people standing around the truck. And the guy who owns the pumpkin patch is dead in the back of her truck, and he's been hit in the head with a shovel. So the mystery kind of goes from there. She deals a lot, of course, with the cop in town, and his brother ends up showing up because they're doing the Civil War reenactment. It takes place in West Virginia, in the hills of West Virginia. It was just so cute and charming. There's a fainting goat in this story, which I love. The grandmother is a delight. She has this, like, what is it? Her stitching group, her stitching circle. And they sound like they embroider or cross stitch or something like that. And that's super fun. Yeah, this was just overall, I don't want to give too much away for the mystery itself, but it was a lot of fun. I didn't guess who it was. I had tried to guess who it was, but I wasn't right. Who it was wasn't who I thought it was, if that makes sense. So yeah, this one was a lot of fun. If you like cozy mysteries, definitely, you know, read this one. If you want, start with the first book, but if you just want something fall, get into this one. Delightful. Absolutely recommend it. You know how much I love Julianne Lindsey's work. This one was fantastic. And that is everything that I have read this week, you guys. So what am I currently reading? I very, very quickly mentioned this. I'm not going to talk too much about it because this I'm putting down in favor of reading something else right now. Not because I'm not enjoying this. I'm about 3 or 4 chapters into it, but I'm going to pick this one back up next. The book I'm currently reading, I'm hoping to finish today. So I should be picking this one back up tomorrow. But the book I'm currently reading is called Love Off Limits by Jenny Proctor. So a couple weeks ago, Jenny Proctor put a call out on Instagram looking for ARC team members. And I'm interested in her books. She writes sweet romantic comedies. So there's no adult content in these books. They're all very sweet. And you guys know how much I love a good sweet romance. So I thought I'd try, and I, you know, put my request in to join the team, and I got approved for the book I got sent the book by her on Friday. So I decided to start it. And it's, like I said, it's called Love Off Limits by Jenny Proctor. This is the 3rd book in a series, but you do not have to have read the first 2 books. I haven't read them, and in no way have I been lost. Our 2 main characters in this book meet at another friend's wedding, but they're another story, and that's fine. So what I love about this one, this isn't your typical, like you see it a lot in contemporary romance, where a couple will be paired together at a wedding, like a bridesmaid and a groomsman, and they don't get along. It's usually an enemies to lovers type scenario. In this case, the 2 of them kind of really fall for each other it was kind of a love at first sight, I want to say. But she is very standoffish in terms of the relationship, because she's dealing with a few things back home. The story starts out in Charleston and then ends up taking place in, I think, South Carolina. Charleston's where? Maybe it's North Carolina. I can't remember. Anyway, so it's at a farm, and that's all I really want to say at this point. I am about halfway through it. I plan on finishing it today, so I will definitely let you guys know my thoughts next week. So far, I'm really enjoying this one. And then the book I'm currently listening to on audio, I actually have a physical edition of. I'm about that far through it at this point. So there's my bookmark. I am reading The Orphan of Cemetery Hill by Hester Fox. This one is really good, you guys. I'm really liking this one. It is creepy. It's not what I anticipated. So this is a historical fiction novel, and it takes place in Boston in 1844. And it's about a girl who is an orphan. She was raised by her aunt and uncle after her parents died. And she has a gift. She can see and speak to the dead. And she has to kind of go into her mind to do so. It's not like they just show up in front of her and talk to her. It's all within her mind. And her aunt and uncle exploited her as a child with this gift, because 1844, the Victorian era, I think, especially in the US, was big with seances. Like, that kind of thing seemed to be very big at that time period. I mean, if you go back and look at Halloween in the Victorian times, they really went all out. Like, they sent each other like greeting cards, I think. So it was a big to-do, like these seances. And the aunt and uncle kind of exploited her with this gift that she had. And she ran away when she was young, and then she ended up being taken in by the man who kind of is the caretaker for the cemetery. And she's now older, and she's met this man, and he was engaged. And then prior to that, his father died, which is where the two of them met. And he was kind of not knowing what to do with himself, because he's now been given his father's business, and his, dad didn't really ever seem very happy to give him the business. So she talks to his father to find out what the son needs to know about running this business. And then not long after that, this guy who was engaged, his fiance dies, is murdered. And he's kind of being the one fingered for the murder, essentially, right? So the stories, that's kind of the point that I'm at now, is that he's actually escaped from jail. He's gone back to England, or he's gone to England. So it's this whole thing, but it's creepy. Like, I was listening to parts of this on Friday when I was sitting here at work, like working from home. And I was home by myself. My husband had gone out. My mother had gone out. And just some of the things in the book, like I was sitting here with my door open behind me, and it was one of those, I kept glancing behind me, like down the hall, like, the fingers on the back of your neck kind of an idea. It was creepy, very atmospheric. So again, I will give you more thoughts on this one when I finish it. So I'll talk about this one next week, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to finish this one today. I don't have much longer to go, and I am listening to it on audio. I think I've got about 4 more hours left. So I have lots of time today. I've got really no plans. I plan on just sitting and doing some stitching. I'm going to finish this off and then finish the other book off. And yeah, so it's going to be a big book finishing day today, I think. So yeah, I am enjoying this one. And last but not least for this video, a little bit shorter than last week's, mainly because I didn't finish as many books this week. But that's okay, because most of them are really good. So I got book mail. 2 authors sent me art copies of their books, and I am so beyond thrilled. So the first one here was the great Tara Taylor Quinn. I'm doing this in order of release date, in case you're curious. She sent me her Christmas Future, and this is part of her Parent Portal series. This one is out now, so you can buy this one in stores. It's funny, I saw this in Walmart last week, and I was gonna buy a copy, and I'm like, no, I actually bought a digital copy of it, so I have supported the author. Yeah, so I have this, and she did sign it to me, which was very, very sweet. So I'm very, very happy to have this one. And yeah, I am beyond thrilled. So this is very, very exciting. Yeah, I'm really happy to have this one. And then the other one is from Laurel Greer, fellow Canadian author. Not that I'm a Canadian author, fellow Canadian who's an author. And this is her new book. This comes out next month. It is available for purchase right now on the harlequin.com website. But if you want to pick it up in stores, it'll be available at the end of this month, first week of November. And that is The 12 Dates of Christmas by Laurel Greer. And this is part of her Sutter Creek, Montana series. Absolutely adorable. And the great thing is, just earlier this week, Bree and I had the chance to talk to Laurel Greer. Her episode will be coming out November, early December, because it is a Christmas book that we're talking about. So we're kind of doing some Christmas themed podcast episodes. So we'll be talking about this book then, but it's really, really cute. That's all I have to say. It's about two people who are kind of co-running this 12-day of Christmas festival, and it's absolutely delightful, and I love it. And she was a delight to talk to. So thank you very much to Tara Taylor Quinn and to Laurel Greer for sending me those copies. I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. And Laurel signed it to me as well, which just makes me so happy. So yay on that one. But anyway, guys, that is it for today's video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. I do hope to get another video out this week, but it probably won't be till like Thursday. So we shall see on that one. And yeah, that's about it. Any questions, comments? If you guys have read any of these books, please let me know in the comments below. And until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.